The village of Staroye Milyutino, Sovetskaya Street, House 24. There aren't many of them there. There are less than a dozen of them left. You'll find them. Anton handed the documents to Vita. The main thing is to buy the land on the field and the house as a bonus. All right, Vitya answered and took the papers. How to go? I can't give you a car from the company. There are no drivers now. You should have gotten a license, Anton frowned. But you can get there by bus in an hour and a half. Vitya nodded, left the office and went home. He worked in a small agronomic company, usually sitting in the office, concluding contracts for the sale and purchase of land. It was the first time he was going on a business trip out of town. Some grandfather from the village decided to move to the metropolis and sell his village house, but still could not find a buyer. Then he turned to the company where Vitya worked. They were not usually interested in houses, but his grandfather had something else, a large plot of land in the field and 2 vegetable gardens. That was Vitya's main goal. The boy got up in a good mood, anticipating the freshness of the clean country air and a large bonus for a successful deal on 3 plots of land and a whole house. Slowly he packed, taking with him all the documents, a small amount of money and sandwiches. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he was already standing at the bus station. The village of Staroye Milyutino was the last on the route, and the road to it took about an hour and a half or 2 hours. The boy took a seat at the end of the cabin and soon dozed off. He was awakened by the driver's loud, hoarse voice. "Get up! Here we are!" Vitya opened his eyes and looked around. He was the only passenger. "Milyutino?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "Semyonovka," replied the obese man, tapping his fingers on the steering wheel. "How Semyonovka?" Vitya instantly came to his senses. "I thought mine was the terminus. Have we passed Milyutino already?" The driver turned around and asked in surprise. "You had to go to Milyutino?" "Yes." The boy was upset. "Why did you have to go there?" The driver squinted. "On business. I'm buying land. We haven't gotten there yet. It's only 10 kilometers away." "Why did you wake me up?" Vitya exhaled with relief. "The thing is," the driver visibly tensed up, "they don't go there. Milyutino is a bad place. Will the sorceress drag you into the forest?" The guy smiled and plumped down on the seat. "No, don't get me wrong," the driver said quite seriously. "Nobody takes the bus from there. There are few people left, and rumors are rife. It used to be a huge village, and then one day, and almost everyone left, abandoned their homes. Why did they all run away?" Vitya was interested. "Who says what?" The man started the engine and the bus moved off. One kid at the farm in Semyonovka was scratching his tongue about living in Milyutino. He said they sit in their huts there every night and don't go out. "I wonder," Vitya shook his head. "Maybe they're bandits?" The driver shrugged his shoulders. "Say," after a couple of minutes the boy started, "can you pick me up from there in the evening?" "What time in the evening?" "I have a flight from Semyonovka at 8:30. I can pick you up at 7, but not later." "Great. I think everything will be done by then." The bus slowed down at the turnoff. The asphalted road changed to a country road and led deep into the forest. "You can go on your own," said the driver. "Go straight along the road. There will be a cemetery on the right. Don't be frightened. No one will touch you during the day." And he added quietly, "The evil wakes up at night." "I have an aspen steak with me," Vitya joked ridiculously. The driver only shook his head. The guy got out of the bus. The bus slammed the doors, roared and hurried away. Vitya looked around, took a full breath and walked down the road into the forest. The weather was usual for early fall. A little rain drizzled, the wind blew, the trees creaked under their weight. The boy sped up, trying not to think seriously about the driver's words. He looked to the right. Through the yellowed leaves of the trees, he could see the shriveled grave crosses and old iron monuments. There was no one to take care of the cemetery in the almost extinct village. Vitya came to a small street of 7 houses. The 2 closest to him were abandoned. with broken windows and piled roofs. They dutifully rotted amidst the withered grass. A little farther away were well-maintained houses, and a group of people were huddled around one of them. The guy approached them, picked out one man and said, "Hello, hello, I'm from the agronomy office. I'd like to see Albert Valerievich." The man was surprised. "Albert Valerievich is gone. They just buried him this morning." "Come on." The guy was upset. "I had business with him." "It happens." The man waved his hands. "Life is called. He got sick in the morning. We didn't have time to save him. In fact, his son promised to come this week, tomorrow or the day after tomorrow." Vitya stepped aside, dialed the chief's number, but there was no connection. The broken deal threatened with no bonus. Then the guy decided to wait for the son of the deceased grandfather to offer him to conduct the deal retroactively, forge the signature of the deceased, and then already declare the death. "Can you tell me?" He turned to the man again. "Do you have any hotels? I would like to spend the night." "Let me see your ID," he replied. The guy took out a document. "Viktor Knyazev, representative of the office." "Nice to meet you. I'm Gleb Ivanovich," nodded the man. "I have a key to Albert's house. You can lie down there." "It's uncomfortable somehow." The guy hesitated. "Damn it. I should have gone yesterday. I'm sorry, I'm not superstitious at all. But you know, Grandpa drove off in the vegetable garden, so don't worry." Gleb patted Vitya on the shoulder. "If you want stay, then you'll leave with his son. Everything you need for life is here: water, electricity, gas, even TV." "Thank you," Vitya smiled. "And how many people live here?" "Not very many." "Look," Gleb pointed his finger at two elderly women, the Orlov sisters, and over there, he nodded in the direction of a young family. "Oleg with Marina and daughter Ladaka, opposite me live. Well, and another half a dozen grandfathers and grandmothers. We have no young people." "And where do you live?" "Near the woods." Gleb pointed to a brick house. "It's pretty nice here, but the driver scared me," Vitya told me. "He said that everyone is sitting in their houses, afraid to go out." "Nice indeed, but he didn't scare me for nothing." The boy looked questioningly at the man. "So, is it really a bad place here?" "Bad, not bad, it doesn't matter." Gleb exhaled heavily and continued. "Don't take offense, but you're a stranger here. We are usually distrustful of strangers. But since you've come on business, I'll tell you how to do it, and you do without questions." He came a little closer. "Remember the simple rules. 8 o'clock is the time to get off the street. Lock the wicket, lock the doors to the house, curtain the windows tightly. Until 11 p.m., you're safe. 10 to 15 minutes before that time, turn off the TV, radio, or other electronics, prepare a place to sleep, and turn out the lights. After 11 o'clock, you should lie in bed, necessarily in the dark. Don't be afraid of anything. Sleep soundly and wait for morning. If you sleepwalk, tie your hand to the bed or spread a wet rag on the floor. God forbid you to leave the house at night. After 6 o'clock in the morning, you can walk freely. How can you not be afraid here, and what will happen?" Vitya asked, already feeling a chill running down his spine. "I asked you no questions. I can only say that we had a kid here. He went to the toilet at night, and in the morning we found him there. We took him out in pieces." Cold sweat broke out on Vitya's forehead. Fear froze in his chest. Even if Gleb was lying, he did it very convincingly. The boy spoke quietly. "I'd probably better go in the city to find Albert's son." Gleb smiled. "It sounds creepy, of course, but believe me, if you do everything right, there's nothing to be afraid of. There is a problem, there is a solution. There is still time, think." Vitya said goodbye and walked past the cemetery towards the bus stop. By the roadside, he sat down on an oak tree, took a bite of sandwiches and waited. The sun was setting. The clock showed 8:30. The boy looked into the distance in the hope of seeing a bus, to no avail. After another 15 minutes, Vitya's patience broke down. He ran back to the village, stopped at Gleb's house, went up on the porch and knocked. The man opened, smiled, and gave Vitya the keys. The door slammed quickly. The guy didn't even have time to say anything. On the way back, he naively hoped that Gleb would offer him to spend the night in a beautiful brick house. It was awkward to knock a second time. Vitya hurried to Albert's house. Immediately, he turned on the light in all the rooms, checked every corner for monsters, and, finally convinced that the house was clean, closed the doors. It was terribly stuffy inside. Vitya opened the window in the room, took the remote control from the TV, and collapsed into an armchair. The evening dragged on for a long time. Neither the phone nor the TV distracted him from the gloomy thoughts that had accumulated in his head. The clock struck 11 o'clock in the evening. Vitya was already lying in bed, as it was supposed to be, in total darkness. It was very quiet. Only the song of a cricket outside lightened the oppressive atmosphere. The boy lay for a long time listening, until suddenly the full horror came to him. If I hear a cricket outside, it means the window is open. A ghastly thought struck Vitya. The cold ran from the back of his neck, jumped to his back, and spread all over his body. The fingers of his hands trembled. Vitya stood up, timidly put his feet on the floor, and, sneaking, went to the window, sharply closed the shutter, and turned the knob. That was it, he was safe now. The boy exhaled with relief and was about to go back to bed. Suddenly there was a knock on the glass. At first quiet, timid, and then confident and impatient. Vitya froze in the middle of the dark room, slowly turned his head toward the window, trying to see something in the impenetrable gloom. Something sharp was swiped across the glass. The frost stiffened the boy. He crept to the bed and silently climbed under the blanket. Vitya felt like a cowardly boy who was afraid of an imaginary monster and covered himself with the blanket, naively believing that it would protect him. Only the creature was not imaginary. There was really something outside the window. The knocking was replaced by a nasty scraping. Vitya curled up. He was terribly stuffy under the blanket. Tears streamed down his cheeks, and his knees trembled treacherously. Damn the driver. Damn him for crashing. I should have walked to Semyonovka. Why did I stay? These thoughts almost made him whimper. Suddenly, everything went quiet. Vitya pulled his head out from under the blanket and, without opening his eyes, fell asleep. He woke up early, looked at the clock, 7 o'clock. Without wasting a minute, the boy got dressed, ran outside, rushed to Gleb's house, but stopped halfway and was stunned. Gleb's bloody head was sticking out of the broken window. His eyes were missing, replaced by 2 dark hollows. The torn neck was stuck on a large sharp splinter. Vitya felt nauseous, turned away, and hurried to the house across the street to tell him what had happened. The door was opened by Oleg, the father of the family. He let the guy into the house, calmed him down, and listened. The news of Gleb's death shocked him. Oleg ran outside, and when he returned, he began to wander thoughtfully around the small room and mutter something under his nose. A sleepy Marina came out of the bedroom in a long terrycloth robe and red slippers. Her husband told her what had happened, quietly adding, "Now I myself must somehow everything," and left the house. Marina offered Vita to have breakfast, put on the table tea with sandwiches, and herself sat down next to the guy and asked him about the events of last night. "It knows you're afraid of it," she concluded after listening to him. "And it smelled it, probably, but it's not quite clear why it went to Gleb. Maybe you knocked something down. Or maybe he forgot to close the window, like me." Vitya justified himself. Gleb could not forget. Marina thought and shuddered. "He probably saved you from that." Vitya hesitated. "And you know what it is?" "No, but Grandma Orlova said she saw it break a light bulb on a pole." "What does it look like?" The guy almost trembled in anticipation. "Never mind all this." Marina averted her gaze. "It's not your burden, Vitya. Oleg and Gleb brought him. That's it, don't worry about it." The guy wrinkled his nose, sighed intermittently, and looked around. "And where did Oleg disappeared? Are we even in the ambulance we'll call? Come on." Marina shook her head. What is there to call? Oleg himself will decide. How to be at night now, I do not know. In the evening he will return, will tell, probably. Where will he come back from? The guy got excited. From work. His car picks him up at the turnoff. It's already time. She glanced thoughtfully at the wall clock. Jesus! Vitya jumped up from his seat. I could have left with him. Go on foot, it's not very far. On foot? The boy asked in surprise. After what happened last night, I won't even go near the forest. You're hiding something, keeping some secrets. Gleb was not the last man here, right? Now he's gone. Oleg's running around in a panic, and you're suggesting I go through the woods. Soon he calmed down, thanked Marina for breakfast, and returned to Albert's house. On the window in the room where Vitya slept, revealed deep scratches. One, even a weak blow on the glass would easily shatter it. An oppressive feeling of hopelessness came over the boy. He sincerely did not understand why the villagers did not do anything. Vitya watched them wandering anxiously in the street, but as soon as he spoke to them about Gleb, they immediately changed the subject and tried to get rid of the annoying young man. The day passed surprisingly quickly. Vitya, fearing every rustle, locked himself in the house and sat like that for several hours. Then, escaping from frightening thoughts, decided to come to Marina again. They sat for a long time, drinking tea and talking. Vitya now and then tried to find out about the mysterious reason for the stay of people in this cursed village. But, hearing such questions, Marina sharply interrupted the guy and begged to end this conversation. You have people dying like flies, indignant guy, and you sit and do nothing? God be with you, she whispered. If we understood everything, there are rules, there is a clear example of what will happen if they are not observed. Gleb and Oleg were up to something, they had to fix it. You're still free to go, but he won't let us go. As long as we're all here, it's not going anywhere either. Oleg knows how to end it all. Vitya frowned, his cheekbones flaring. He is your husband, you surely know what he and Gleb did? Marina did not answer. Then Vitya was struck with horror. For a moment he definitely shivered, and then quietly asked, Albert himself died? Or he wanted to leave? And the woman sighed heavily, but did not utter a word. The boy understood. About 2 hours had passed, and Vitya was about to leave. He went out on the porch and saw Oleg standing in front of Gleb's brick house, shaking his head slightly and looking at the bloody shards of glass. Marina approached Vita, called her husband, but he did not respond. What is he? Quietly asked the guy. Oleg, called Marina, but her scream immediately choked, turning into a nervous cough. She was the first to see the disgusting entity that slowly climbed out of the broken window. Vitya noticed the creature as well. Creepy, slime-covered pale hands glistened in the sunset rays. Behind them appeared a gaunt body, covered with a hideous tangle of cracked bones, like the roots of a mystical tree. At the neck, all the bones gathered and grew structurally in the manner of a spider's web, framing an indescribably horrible face. Oleg stood still, frantically going over some iron figures in his hands. Yes, come home, freak, cried Marina, slowly retreating. That glimpse turned around, his face twisted with fright. Bone something in one jump caught up with the victim. Oleg dropped the figures, wanted to run away, but the creature grabbed him by the neck with its long arm and brought him to its huge mouth. Thin, as if sewing needles, teeth dug into the unfortunate neck. Gurgling nastily, it burst red, sprinkling the pale bones of the ghastly creature. Vitya's legs gave out. Gritting his teeth, he took a sharp step back and slammed the door behind him. Marina sat on the floor, hugging her little daughter, who came running to the noise and scared to tears. Hands did not obey the guy, only with the third time he locked the door on the deadbolt. He looked at Marina, who was sitting quite pale, covering her daughter's mouth with a trembling palm. Vitya rushed to the light switch and turned off the lights in the house. shuddering his whole body from the terrible convulsions. He fell down next to Marina. The guy came to himself already at night. He could hear little Ludaka wheezing with her mouth clamped shut, and felt Marina's heavy breathing on his cheek. "She's all on fire," the woman whispered faintly. Vitya carefully crawled to the door and listened. The creature made no sound, but the boy felt its presence on the other side. By morning, Luda had stopped breathing. At first, Vitya thought that the little girl had fallen asleep, but when he heard her mother sobbing, he guessed what was the matter and trembled. The sun rose above the forest, and voices began to come from the street. "Why did it appear so early?" Vitya asked quietly. "Because Gleb was not there, right?" He glanced at Marina, who was sitting quite pale and rocked in her hands the cold body of her daughter. "I'm sorry," the boy whispered. "I shouldn't have asked." The car came to the corner as usual behind Oleg, only it was met by Vitya. He handed the driver all the cash he had and asked him to take him to Semyonovka. There the guy took a shuttle bus and left for the city. Vitya told his superiors nothing. When he arrived, he took a sick leave and drank. The case was handed over to another employee, who met Albert's son in the office and finalized the deal. The land in the village was sold. The guy never got his bonus. And a few days later, he saw the news on the internet. 2 mutilated corpses were found in the village of Semyonovka. Vitya shuddered. Has it really finished with one village and started on another? He thought.